Lock picking. I'll be wanting to do that.
Y'all take the lock picking. No more mini game.
No. I'll take lock picking.
So I'm taking baseball bats so far, clubs and bats, because I also noticed that the big and fast perk that is in the same tree works on both clubs and sledgehammer, so never mind, I'm just going clubs. Clubs and shotties. I don't have to branch to like 3 different stats to be good anymore.
Okay, where's the handguns?
Agility? I think that's gunslinger.
Yep. Alright. Pea shooter. I'm going to take pea shooter. And knives.
I still want light armor, but I'm not sure how... Because the penalty for light armor, or for heavy armor at maximum level before was okay. Ooh, but that actually makes it really good. It actually improves durability too now. Now it just reduces the penalty.
Okay, do you want to load up and head south? Because we have 3 zombies sort of working their way through.
That's fair. Let's grab our stuff. I don't care about the chests, but I'll just hit a button, and there's one piece of thing left. I am very overweight right now.
I will grab this one.
Okay.
Give me a second.
And let me take a perk in
Ooh,
packing. Yes, equip what you can. That'll probably...
Well, I've already got a baseball hat, and I don't need the cold resist right now. So
okay.
So, shall we head?
Because I can't pick them up, and it would bother me not to have the wood.
Yeah.
It would also bother me to accidentally... Oh, hey, there's some forged iron in that one. Ooh. Oh, I hate the big ones. We're too early for the big ones. We're taking turns with our stamina. Yay! Okay, if you can grab that... If you can fit the forged iron somehow.
Yep, I got it.
Cool. I am... what is the workstation crafting skill under? Is that intelligence?
I'm not sure.
It looks like it is intelligence. So I guess I can do strength and intelligence and not just do heavy armor. Because it looks like the perks for armor is actually really good. And I'm already doing strength anyways for the one thing, so...
Okay.
And I guess you're doing agility and also intelligence for lockpicking?
Yes.
Oh, actually, you know what? If you're taking intelligence, you can get the... It's in the same tree, so you can get the those perks as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll take fortitude, and then I can do living off the land. So in which case, here, read these. Because that's for crafting stuff.
Yep.
And I'll read the Lucky Looter book, just so I have enough free inventory space where I'm not sluggish as heck.
Alright, you're doing the clubs, right?
Yes.
Alright, then here.
Ooh. Big hitters! Ooh.
Salvage tool crafting skill, repair tool crafting skill.
Unlocked clubs 2. That's actually important. I think I can make a better club now.
Okay. Shall we head out?
Yes, but I'm just replacing my level 1 club with a level 2 club. And I'll make one for you as well, because that's what you're using at the moment.
Yes.
There. On the ground there. You can scrap the old one for some leftover woods, I guess. And south it is in a snail's crawl.
Yeah. How about we go this way to avoid the zombies?
That's fair.
And head towards a quest anyway.
That's true. There is a quest in that direction. I think I'm moving just a little bit slower than you. Shrug.
Okay. That's okay. Well, I have room if you want to give me some stuff.
I've got 2 empty spots. How about you?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got lots of empty spots.
Here, take some of this, I guess. It's probably some of stuff you already have, too, actually.
Yes.
But now we're both a little bit less encumbered.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do our best not to acquire the quest this time of day, though.
Yeah.
At least not without putting some chests down. Oh, I hear a spider. Hello, spider. You suck, spider. Ooh, level 2 baseball bat. With the level 1 of the baseball perk, that makes a difference.
Yep.
Okay, now I'm feeling a little bit more confident. I know we're very full.
I'll get the... Okay.
But...
we need the honey.
Yes, we do. No honey.
So did you receive any Christmas presents this year?
I did, in fact.
Were you a good boy for Santa?
I think so. I'm currently sitting on my new Christmas gift.
Oh, yeah, the chair.
Uh-huh.
I saw that. That looks very fancy.
It better be for how much I spent on it. It's an expensive...
Look at the deer. Just trotting along. Leave the deer alone. You've got no need for it.
You saw me pull my club out. Down.
Hold on. So that's what it looks like. Okay.
Oh, you looked. You're kind of looking at the spider, and you're like, "That's what they are."
That's what they look like. Okay.
I wouldn't want to look too close. They jiggle.
Ew.
No honey this time. I think that cabin over there is the POI.
That wouldn't surprise me. My turn.
Maybe you'll get lucky.
Well, the only place I got presents from so far, like we didn't cancel Christmas, we postponed it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a budget. Sherb and I have a budget, and we've got to pick up a couple things for Diamond. Okay. And then we're going to wrap presents. Well, I don't think we're going to wrap presents. I think we're just going to put them in bags and give them to each other. But
this is the POI, I think. Now, according to my map, there's a road this way, that big dirt road.
Okay.
If we follow this dirt road south, we'll reach town.
Okay.
And it's about 200 meters away.
Okay.
Here, let me put a temporary waypoint down, and if that'll do it. Quick waypoint. Please. Why can I not set a quick waypoint? Oh, I can. Okay. I can't share said quick waypoints. I'll have to make it a permanent one.
Okay. Gift bags are great, easier to use, reusable. Yeah, but there's something to be said about taking a present and ripping the paper open.
I mean, I was always the one to try and find all the taped edges and just peel them gently, but...
Oh, well, I'm the one that keeps the tissue from all the bags.
So that waypoint I sent you is the northern tip of the city. I don't know what the waypoint markers are all talking about, though.
Okay.
Those are new. That's something I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
And if we're lucky, there's going to be another trader over there. Also, I just noticed in my map, because I forgot to do it, but it pre-marked Trader Rec for me when I talked to him the first time.
Oh, cool. Mrs. B says that she's also super careful about unwrapping. And for her, at least, it's faster because she doesn't sit there and try and take the tape off without ripping the paper. Yeah.
Yes, I discovered the value of a dull straight edge, aka a letter opener.
Yes. People get impatient with you, Mrs. B.
Wait, we're going west now. Where am I going? I am going the wrong way. My waypoint
Well,
is this way. I followed the wrong road.
You didn't follow the yellow brick road properly?
Yes, I followed the brown dirt road instead.
Okay.
Here's something. It's a snake. It's a snake. Yay! Meat! And leather.
Oh, good. Oh, what's this? This is something we can't mine up yet.
That is lead.
Oh, okay.
And technically our wooden axes are technically universal multi-tools. They're just really bad ones.
All right.
I would ignore it. It's just lead.
Okay.
Because that's just a marker for a vein, just like the iron and nitrate ones. They should be everywhere. In fact, I think if you... Oh, did you get a honey?
Yep.
Nice. I think if you look at your map and you like zoom in, if you take a look at those little gray dots all over the map.
Yeah.
The brown ones are iron. The black ones are coal. The blue ones, I think it's blue, is lead. Forget what color I forget what color the oil shale is, but those only show up in the desert.
Right.
But we're playing on vanilla, so if we use a salvage tool on cars, we'll get gas cans. Unlike, before. Oh man, gasoline and Undead Legacy was a nightmare.
Yes, it was. According to Star Wars, since his divorce, he doesn't really celebrate holidays or his own birthday.
That's
to each their own.
Well, yes. I put up my little Christmas tree, and that made me feel better because I get serious sads every year.
Oh, well, when I got home, Cherub and Diamond had put up our little 1 foot tall Christmas tree and decorated it for me, so I would have something.
Well, you need something.
Yes. So. But the money came in for refinancing the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So I paid all of our bills. We have no bills overdue.
Oh, that's so nice.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I keep finding additional things to be grumpy about my house. Okay, my kitchen light fixture sucks.
Okay.
It's one of those dome things that's flush against the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Which, alright, that's already pretty bad. It's oval-shaped, not round.
Okay.
So I've got 4 pins, like screw pins, to the ceiling. Mm-hmm. Okay, so far so good. Because it's oval-shaped, it's like, I want to say it's about maybe 4 or 5 feet long.
Oh, wow.
It's a big one, on the long side.
Yeah, just a wee bit.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you got a pin on each corner, you unscrew them, and I'm like, okay, well, one of my lights burnt out, so I'll go and replace the light bulb. Shouldn't be that bad. I go to take it off. First of all, I discovered that, fortunately, because it's plastic, it's not a big deal, but the dome came off because the dome is not a part of the ring that is attached to the ceiling. It's just sitting there. It's just got like a little ridge that it hangs on.
Oh, jeez.
So when I unscrewed it, the whole thing came apart in my hands, and like I ended up with the ring around my neck and the plastic thing on the floor.
Oh, wonderful.
Was not comforting.
I bet.
It's also a pain in the butt to put back up into the ceiling because there's 4 pins and it's kind of awkwardly shaped. We're talking like I need 3 hands.
Yeah.
And then I took a look inside, and it turns out that the light bulbs are not standard light bulbs. They are 12-inch ring-shaped fluorescent tubes.
Okay, she's dead, but she got up.
Might be glitch.
That would be a glitch, I think.
So I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, well, what's it take to replace one of these things? I'm like, how much is it? And I look online, and it's like, $10 to $15 each.
Oh, Pass and Gas Plaza 3, tier 3. No,
Oh, it actually tells you what tier they are now.
Yep.
I like it.
Go walk up to it. Walk up towards it.
Holy crap! 3 stars. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We're playing 7 Days to Die. So, oh. It's a zombie. They don't die according to Star Wars. Ow,
Sorry, I'm just
ow,
getting.
ow,
I'm collecting water because I saw a water bottle.
Okay. I'm getting a stretch. Ow. Oh.
I'm really enjoying this chair though. It's a nice chair.
Well, that's good. Thank you for the stretch. Oh.
Okay, I'm just wondering if there's a trade NPC around here. Because then we don't have to do the hike all the way back north again.
Yeah.
By the way, I set
Hiya.
Horde Night to 10 days.
Thank you. Hiya, Static. How you doing? Static summoned a little army of fey creatures to polish my scales.
Nice.
Ah, thank you. That feels good. Oh, yes. Scratch that itch. Yes.
This is an excellent POI, by the way.
Yes, a deracinated domicile.
I am full, and there is a headlight in here. Yeah. Yeah. Well, she glitched halfway into the ground.
Yep.
Deracinated domicile.
Yep. Don't go after the police car.
Do they actually have car alarms now?
The police cars have car alarms that will bring a horde of zombies.
Ugh, good thing this one's locked then, because I couldn't even try it.
Well, that's the point. You unlock it, and the alarm goes off, and you get inundated.
Mm-hmm. Book of Wasteland Treasures, and read that one straight up because that's just they get more loot from coffins. There's some paper in there, but I'm full, as I said.
Okay. Did we only get the one?
Just the one. Otherwise, I would have given you one. Sorry.
Okay.
I have loot at 200%, but that doesn't guarantee anything.
Yeah. No problem.
Potato seeds. I'm going to use the POI teleporter to see if there's any trade NPCs nearby.
Okay.
Which I'm going to have to do the hard way because I don't know what my coordinates are at the same time as this POI indicator is up.
Well, I'm here, so
But feel free to explore while I try and figure that out. Oh, there's a... Hello, Mr. Yo. Bonk. Bonk. Meds.
Vitamins and recog.
Well, that's partially useful.
Yep. Hiya, Dale. How you doing?
Okay, what is my coordinates?
Dale's squirrel and Dale Wayward. Aw, I wouldn't need a squirrel. They're nice here.
2300 and 500. 2300 by 500. 27 by 27.
You're doing all right. You understand I've been hanging there myself. Yes, yes, yes. Having a heart attack on Christmas Day, I do not recommend. It's a really lousy way to celebrate the holiday, if you celebrate it. Yes, there's a squirrel here.
There's a
Something
Trader
to keep us
Joel. Let me
occupied.
try that one. Where does that put me? So I did just teleport, yes. Oh, hey,
A
actually,
kilometer.
this is not bad. It's literally on the other side of the city.
Okay, well, let me move up there then.
Unless you want me to teleport you here, because it's like you'd have to go through downtown.
Yeah, teleport me. Thank you.
Trader Joel. It's also the nice guy.
He's your squirrel when you hit the button? Ah, okay. We like nice guys.
He's the nice guy. Well, he actually says nice things about you when you talk to him.
Yeah. We got the thug.
Do you have the building blocks? No, I have the building blocks.
You have the building blocks. I have the money and wood.
Okay, I am about to... I'm just doing this for right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I can put some boxes down. So that we don't lose them in the grass.
Yep, no problem.
But I need to make some inventory space, so I'm dropping in 1 or 2 things.
Okay. Yes, the squirrel is very cute. No need for the squirrel to hide. We like cute things. Part of my hoard is diamond stuffies.
Okay, and it's just a place to put our stuff. At least for now. And then later on we can set up a safe zone. In fact, I think this is actually a pretty good place to set up shop, because Trader Joel is like on the outskirts of the south end of the city, so this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
According to the... Like, we're on the southeast outskirts of the city, so this is a good spot to be. So if you don't mind, I'm going to abandon the quest from Wrecked.
Yep.
And then I'll grab one from Joel, because it's daytime. Also, we can search his camp for good stuffs. I just got another car magazine and another Forge magazine for you.
Oh, good.
I noticed that all of the trade NPCs have helipads now.
Yep.
Does that mean
There
7 Days
is-
is getting helicopters soon?
Well, there's a lot of talk about it.
He's got mushrooms! He's got mushroom plants and I can't harvest them. The jerk.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the precious gem, how's she handling the unwanted excitement? She had a rough go of it.
Working
But
porta potties.
She's been to work. She has she went, like I said, she went to work, and she functioned really well. She went to out to a sleepover at her friend's place, which she didn't really enjoy because everybody was just too peopled out.
Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of, I imagine there was a little bit of just like, well, a little bit much.
Yeah, it was pretty much too much of a muchness for a lot of stuff. But she's doing okay. Cherub is doing all right. I got 4 shotgun shells for you
Nice.
because I know you like your shoddy.
Yes, I heard they adjusted the way the guns work in this one. Why can't I open the front door? Is there an upstairs door I can open?
Hi, Mobius. How you doing?
There's a lot of books on the table.
What a wonderful day.
Handyland, art of mining, and a shotgun duckbill. What do you say?
You went do 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 do. It's just, aren't you a sight for sore eyes and we ignore him? So he's like do 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 do.
There's a downstairs, but it's locked. I'd like to take a look, because I saw at least one medicine pile, so
Okay.
when we get some lockpicks, we'll see if we can get that open.
It's morning and you need to fetch breakfast soon? Ah, yes, the first meal of the day. I'm not going to say it's the most important meal, but it's definitely the first meal.
I have a clear that is 117 meters southeast. I'm going to grab that.
Aw,
Would
thank you,
kindly
Star Wars.
help me with no matter what. I'm grateful for everything I'm in trouble. You the man.
I suspect, if you take a look, there's a trap door on the floor behind him.
Yep.
So I suspect that's how you get access to those gun racks back there. But it's downstairs, past a locked door, so we'll have to get lockpicks to get at it.
Thank you, darling.
You're welcome. Take it closer right now.
That's fine. How are you feeling?
I'm going to bed.
Okay.
I'm tired.
How are...
Ow.
Okay.
Feel better.
Mm-hmm. I bet. Love you.
Love you too.
Now you've been missed dearly, according to Star Wars Forever. Which is
Well,
nice. Thank you.
we kind of like you around here. Go figure.
Yeah, I hear. I got a quest.
Mm-hmm. I got a quest as well. Mine is a clear. It's not terribly far away.
So, is it a passing gas?
I don't think so. Sorry, I saw you at the corner of my screen and I was like, oh no, a zombie.
Yes.
They are both passing gas, but they're different distances away.
Okay. Well, mine's only 127 meters.
Or maybe that's mine. Yours is 139. They are both the same direction, though, so I'm suspicious.
Yes. All right. Passing gas 7.
They're more or
the
less
same one. They're the same one.
Maybe, but there might be two of them right next to each other. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
Okay, well, let's go to the closest one.
Okay, and I'm just deleting my temporary waypoint because I don't need it anymore, and I'm deleting the city waypoint because I don't need that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Remove that one. There we go. Okay. That way. Okay. We came out the wrong side.
Yeah.
Oh well.
One of the things my mom got me was a pound of the Virgo tea.
Oh! This trade NPC has a door on each side now. We don't have to worry about going all the way around.
Oh, that's nice.
Very important question answer from Eye of Mobius. Bad knees and frostbite hands. But more interesting, the last knuckle of his right index finger, you have to pop it loose every once in a while because he dropped a canoe on it, probably fractured it.
Oh.
The question I have this week is, do you have any old injuries that act up from time to time?
No.
Maybe you have a new injury that acts up from time to time.
Okay, is that, do you see this? See this?
Yes.
Does it say to start the quest?
It does if I look at it, yes.
Same here.
Okay, well, ooh. I haven't touched it yet, I'm just...
Neither have I.
I saw shinies. I got distracted. Some rifle ammo. I prefer shotguns, but I'll take rifles, you know? Well, that was a quick instance. You want to do it again?
We haven't started it. Yeah.
I wonder if they fixed that double glitch?
I don't know.
Let's
I don't
find out.
know.
Well, we're
Okay.
here, so we can find out.
All right, I'll go first.
Oh, hang on. There's always... Yeah, I knew it. That's still a thing. There's always a backpack behind the woodpile.
Ah. Okay.
Okay, you said you're going pistols, right?
Yes.
Would you like this pistol, Pete?
Yes. Yes, I would. All right.
I got an extra secure storage chest from somewhere.
That's okay. We'll hold on to it.
I suppose so. I don't see a button
Alright.
anymore.
Nope. Okay. Really? So that's how they dealt with it.
They just made it so that they are now the same, literally the same quest. Maybe we'll
Yep.
get double rewards just for completing.
That's a possibility.
Ooh, some light armor. It's arms. Here, I took the last one, so you can grab these.
Okay. Thank you. This place is rifle ammo and zombonis. Rife with rifle
Slow.
ammo
Sneak,
and
sneak.
zombonis.
It's a dog.
Alright. Yes.
Sneak mode.
You ready?
I want to get sneak attack on it. Sneak mode, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Ow. Ow. Oh. Ow. Ow. I'm not bleeding to death, but I am infected and bleeding.
We have
Nope, a friend.
Whoa!
We have a friend. I am bleeding, but I'm not going to die from it unless I take too much damage from here. There we go. I am infected, and I have, I think it's a sprain. So when we get back, I'll take some honey.
Yes. Oh, handy lands, vehicle adventures, and some oil. Ranger's Guide to Archery, padded boots, and an iron arrow.
I also
Okay,
have some more magazines for you later, but, here, take this knife.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, hey, my button came back.
Did it?
If I
Alright,
press
hold
this
on.
button, it'll restart, but I'm going to wait until you get out of here before I press.
Okay.
Okay, let's try that now.
It's
Did they fix it? Here we go. Not available till 12:39. Oh, they put a time limit on it. That's what they did.
That's okay. It's better than the error we get.
Yeah, where we have to just randomly disconnect the quests. I can wait for a couple of in-game hours.
Yep. Oh, brass, iron.
I'm just taking my time to loot all the various things around the outside while we wait.
Yep.
This seems like a valid solution.
I think so.
Anything in the water tower? Don't think there's anything in the water tower. It's okay. I have 6 minutes real time of sprained arm anyways, so unfortunately I think I have to let you take the lead on combat for the next clear of this.
Oh, geez. That's going to be good.
I gave you a good club. While we're waiting, here, you can read these books.
Okay.
I think those are all books for you.
Okay, let me see here. We have the Flaming Arrows one, which I don't want. Forge Ahead I want. I can now do a Tier 1 Forge.
Excellent.
I guess I'm doing the Repair Tool Crafting skill.
Repair tool crafting skill.
And there's the Vehicle Crafting skill.
Yes, those are all under intelligence, and I am stepping away from intelligence because you wanted to do the lockpicking, so it's all in the same umbrella, and it's easier for you to get to it than me.
That's true. Okay. No problem.
So I've got 3 points. I'll see if I can get a second level in baseball bats.
I have 1 point. What can I do? Lockpicking. I need to have intellect level 4. Oh, and here's Diamond.
How's it going?
Hello.
Rhino says hello.
Hi, Rhino.
I'm doing fine. I was talking about the drama that was a heart attack on Christmas Day. And that gave me a little bit of chest pressure, but it wasn't any pain, so I was good.
Okay. Yeah, for everyone on the stream, I'm currently watching Mama like a hawk.
Yes.
Hi, Mrs. B. Hi, Static. Hi, Mobius.
We did in fact
Hi,
miss.
Rhino.
We did in fact miss Rowan.
They said they did in fact miss. Okay, I'm gonna put another into intellect
Okay.
because that makes sense.
Yes, that seems.
Oh, and Star
fair.
Wars Forever, that Freedom Wars. He's a friend of the church. He's a good guy.
Hi.
They're all good guys
I know they're all good guys.
and ladies. Yes.
Guys and ladies and neither. Let's be
Guys, ladies, and neither. Yes, that's inclusive. We run the gamut here.
I gotta stop using power attacks. I do that habitually, but I'm sprained
Yep.
right now, so.
You silly person. Being sprained and doing power attacks is not good.
I still have War Trees Mechanica, Leap Cardinal stuck in my head.
Uh-huh. Oh, look, they've changed the parkour a little.
Yes, it's a little bit easier to get to latch
you
onto
playing on the new
buildings.
update?
Yes, we're playing the vanilla.
Alright.
I saw Rhino playing earlier today, and I thought, oh, he's got a day off. Rhino, do you want to play with me? He said, sure, why not?
Twist my
Yes,
rubber
we
arm.
do, Star Wars. Me and Daddy have especially been taking very close care of Mommy.
Yes, you have. You've
Okay, I
been doing a very
believe
good
I
job.
can now activate the quest.
Weirdly, I've become the one in charge of monitoring her sugar intake.
Oh, sorry. 39, not 29.
Hold on, I need to stir my tea because I got Virgo tea for Christmas. I got a whole pound of it. Nom 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 nom. It's the good stuff.
I got my my nice glass mugs finally.
Yeah, you were mentioning that. So what are you drinking right now?
This is just iced coffee, but I like my nice big glasses. Okay, I think I can click the button now.
Okay, hold on. Let me just...
Good to go?
Okay. Yep.
Click. Ooh, the minivan is searchable. Nothing exciting.
Okay.
See, we have
Hi,
French.
Arlene. They named the zombies?
Yes. The women are Arlene, Darlene, Marlene.
And
There's a party
Big Mama,
girl.
I think.
And Big Mama. There's a party girl.
You know she's not
I-
really here for partying.
She's known for partying, for lack of a better term.
That sounds good, Star Wars.
You got hot cocoa? Yes. We do have cocoa mix, by the way.
I
So Martin's
know.
Dog.
cocoa mix. Why
Did
don't
you get caught by the dog?
I don't know where it is, and also I can't be bothered.
Okay.
Did the dog cause
Um,
problems?
The dog's dead. It's
The
just
dog is dead.
physics.
Yeah. The dog is dead, just physics. The dog did not cause problems. Yes, hot cocoa is good. Static is warm weather. What's the weather like where you are, Rhino?
Oh, you know what? Let me take a look here. Pull up my phone, and I'll take a look at the weather. And
We've had a 48-hour snowstorm.
let's see. Temperature right now is at the highest it's going to be all day at minus 23,
Rhino's temperature is the highest it's going to be all day, and it's minus 23.
with a wind chill factor of minus 33.
We're at like -2.
Yep. Yeah, your weather is nasty in different ways. It's our weather is only -2, but we've had the snow and the rain and the snow and the treachery. So
I found a heavy chest piece, so here, have this light one that I found earlier.
oh, nice. Thank you.
What's 69 Fahrenheit in Celsius?
69 Fahrenheit is about 19 degrees.
Not bad.
And a handy magazine for you.
Okay. All right, let me just wear that.
I'm glad they fixed this glitch.
Yeah,
Oh,
so am I.
similar to us, Star Wars. Barely below 0, but also so much snow.
What's your snow levels like right now, Star Wars? How many inches do you have? I'll translate it.
Or centimeters, if that matters.
Oh, I'm better with inches than I am with centimeters.
Okay. I can do both. Yeah.
I can't.
That's okay.
I hear more friends. Also, my sprain is gone. Yay.
Did that zombie just jump on? Did that zombie just try to kill himself?
No, he didn't try and kill himself.
The zombies aren't very intelligent.
You had a thunderstorm that had a very light thunder snow. Very cool. Thunder snow is cool as far as I know.
As long as you're not out in it.
Like storms. Now they make me anxious.
Okay, I think I got all the things I'm gonna get.
Okay, so shall we go back and?
Yes, he's right here. Even I love how close he is to the quest.
Yes, I like that too.
And then I'll wander over to our chest full of stuff.
That is Trader Joel's.
Trader Joel.
Is Trader Joel.
Oh, the traitor.
Yeah, he's the one that gives us the quests, and he's also the one that has, he's the trader.
He's the one with his name on it.
Gratitude.
They really beefed up the graphics.
Well earned to travel.
Yep. Oh, what do I want?
I'm taking
Sniper
that
volume,
helmet light.
armor plating mod.
Ooh, shotgun shells.
I'm thinking about the armor plating mod.
I'll take the weighted head. I think that's less common.
Okay. Last evening you had a thunderstorm. No snow, but living in a big city surrounded by tall buildings makes lightning a little more exciting because of all the lightning rods.
The ball rolling.
Ah. Oh. Okay, I got another one. Weapon flashlight mod. 60 shotgun shells. 10 glue, an insulated liner mod. An automatic weapons handbook volume 3.
Honestly, I think the handbook is probably the most valuable thing there.
Yeah. Cool.
So I picked up another one. I'm really grateful that they auto share quests now because they just kind of know that you're doing this together.
Mm-hmm.
Where's my bedroll? Bedroll's over
I don't
there.
understand the formulas.
Don't worry about it.
They should understand the formulas.
Yeah, I know. The tallest building in Tokyo is a few blocks from your place. Oh, cool.
So
So
I
you
think
live like downtown Tokyo, Mobius?
I've got.
How long has it been since I did math that I don't know how to... Oh, divided.
Divide.
Okay. There's another clear zombie 252 meters west of here.
I think that's the one I grabbed just now as well.
At the Hogfoot Village.
Okay, I'm sipping on that honey. Okay, I think we should probably make another campfire.
So the temperature in Fahrenheit divided by 9 minus
Okay.
32 is... what it is in Celsius.
Yeah.
I will attempt to make things a little bit easy
That's
for you.
nice.
The temperature in my city is averaging the same temperature in both Celsius and Fahrenheit.
Mrs. B, you haven't told us what your Christmas was like.
Ooh, 3 inches. Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, that's the 20 to 30 mile limit.
I'm totally okay with you all knowing what city I live in because it's a city.
Yeah.
And there's like 2-point-something million people here. There's no way you're gonna tell where I live. So I live in Edmonton. It is stinking cold out here right now.
You live in Edmonton? Okay. Just repeating so Diamond could hear. Oh, look. Okay, so Rangers Guide to Archery, I think we can sell.
Probably, yeah.
Machine gunner, automatic weapons.
I might
handbook.
take
I'll
that.
just hold on to it. Okay.
As a secondary to go with the shotgun.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that one yet. I'm not going to touch it until I actually start putting some effort in, you know?
Yeah.
I need some stone, and I will make a fire pit, because I need to make some food.
All right. Let me just.
How's your hunger level?
It's pretty. I be hungry.
Is
We
Asakusa
be
near
hungry.
Harajuku?
Yeah, you live in a neighborhood called Asakusa. Has an enormous temple, rickshaws, kimono rentals, a river, and metric tons of tourists. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's near Harajuku because I know Harajuku is a big tourist destination in Tokyo.
Okay, let's see if I can do bacon and eggs yet. Because I know we got a bunch of eggs and then a bunch of meat. Bacon and eggs would work. I just need to unlock it, I think. Oh, and a cooking pot, apparently.
Oh. Poop.
And the cooking pot... Wait, can I make a cooking pot in here?
Okay. Do we have any rocks, or did you grab them all?
I'm currently holding them all. There's 5. Oh, wait, there's more in here.
There's more in here?
Yeah. I made the campfire.
Oh, okay.
I can make bacon and eggs if I spend a little bit of effort on learning the perk.
Is Harajuku as cool as it looks online?
Have you ever visited Harajuku, Mobius? That's the first question. Has he ever visited
Yeah, have
it?
you been there? And if you have been there, is it as cool as it looks online? Because Harajuku looks really cool.
Yeah. Star Wars, I wish I could get that dragon tub. It was more than you've been used to lately. Mrs. Bifflechip is saying that it was fun. Her sister-in-law and her partner were there from Australia with their kids, so she got to meet her nephew for the first time. And you spent a few days at your parents' place. That sounds like fun.
That sounds fun. I'm sure you all can guess how my Christmas was.
Yeah, we know.
I cried over a plate.
I wasn't there.
Oof.
Yeah, Mommy's. We still had all the plates out for everyone, and there was one plate left, and it was Mommy's plate, and I ended up crying.
That's, oof.
Well, yeah, it was the yes. Give you the pet. All depends. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the only
Yeah,
food...
hugs are very helpful. I am a very tactile human.
Unfortunately, the only food that I can make right now is boiled eggs or charred meat, and neither of them are terribly good.
Yeah. Well,
I've got a quest 200 meters away. If we want to try and suffer through, we can maybe get some.
By chopping it down.
Because I've taken the Master Chef perk, so I might actually start finding books about cooking.
yeah. Let me just grab. Oh, I'm.
Whoa.
How,
Well, I'm slow because I'm at half my health.
you're also
Hold
crouching.
on. Oh, I am. There we go. That would explain why. I was crouching. Harajuku is alright, but the awesome fashion shops and quaint little cafes are away from the main streets. Takashita Dori is the main street of Harajuku, and it's usually a human swimming pool. Ugh.
Yeah, that sounds icky.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I could survive living in Japan. The population density is extremely high in general.
Yeah, population density is definitely extremely high. I couldn't handle it. I barely handle living in Toronto, and the population density there, considering it's higher than where we are now. And it's nowhere near as bad as it is in Japan.
Yeah, if I ever have any interest in travel, I'd probably want to visit Japan. But also, I have zero interest in travel because I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like me. My brother went to Japan.
Oh, I think I've heard of it
About
before once or twice.
my brother went to Japan on a
Yeah.
vacation tourist trip. 2018, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the year before COVID,
Oh, wow.
right? And he said he had an excellent time. He spent an awful lot of time and money in Akihabara.
Yeah, that's...
He got the opportunity to try Wagyu while he was there. Said it
Oh,
was
wow.
good, but it's not worth the like $800 price tag to get it here.
Yeah. Wagyu beef is... I mean, the animals get treated very, very, very well while they're there, while
My
they're
brother's
alive.
comment is that food in Japan is generally treated like an art form.
Food in Japan is generally treated like an art form. Okay.
Yeah, I
So
heard that
there
food
are
is
people in
very
Japan
important.
who are absolutely masters of the craft.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask them to make you something and you don't tell them and you don't make the bossy demands or anything like that, you just go, hey, like, show me what you're famous for. They will, and you will agree.
Yeah. Hiya, Post. How you doing?
So anyways,
Thank
I'm
you
at
for the huggle.
I'm at a instance if you'd like to join me.
Okay. Hold on. Where are you?
I went west,
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Sorry, I was...
It's only 200 meters away. I was just like, let's take a look. It's called Hogfoot Village.
Yes, I have the same one. We can do yours first.
Does the population include tourists, or is that without tourists?
Good question.
Okay. Do you have food?
Unfortunately not.
Ooh, I may end up dying.
Yeah, I didn't
Don't
get
worry.
any food off of this random food storage box that I'm pre-looting, because why not?
Okay, don't worry about it. Oh!
You okay out there?
Well, I wasn't watching where I was going, and
Oh.
I ran into the barbed wire.
Oops.
How'd you get in there?
There's a door.
Drink ginger ale toast.
There's a door on the one side,
I
near where
see
the
it.
exclamation
Okay.
mark is.
Ginger ale helps me feel better when I'm sick.
I found some canned food that may help for a bit. It's cat food.
Meow.
It'll keep you alive, at least.
Meow.
There was a zombie hiding in this porta potty. That's rude.
Yep.
Someone was
Food?
waiting their turn.
Food?
Yes. Food. Ooh, a farming book. I will read that. I can make cotton,
Nice.
which is not super useful on its own, but I can make cotton seeds.
Nice.
It just means I'm... Ooh. Nice of you guys to drop in. Free stuff.
Oh, great. We've got a
Is that
biker.
I was gonna
Where?
say, is that a
Oh.
goth?
The plus side about baseball bats. It does knock them down a little bit easier.
I died.
Oh, well, at least we haven't started the quest yet.
Yes. Closest you've been to Toronto is Niagara Falls. Ah,
Is it Niagara Falls like coming off of Toronto?
yes. Sick temperature, so you've been in bed all day and keeping hydrated. Keeping hydrated is very important, Post. Spawn on my bed.
Why not spawn at your backpack?
Oh, I wasn't given that choice.
Yes, you were.
I was. Oh.
You had the choice to spawn near your backpack.
There's an option
All
to
right.
spawn near your backpack now?
Looks like.
Wow! That is handy.
As long as there's nothing there to the ambush
Yeah,
by,
I killed
yeah.
the zombie. Maybe it was because it ticked up while I was killing a zombie.
That's a possibility.
Why aren't you taking the egg?
I did take the egg. See?
Oh,
I am apparently very hungry. Where's my hunger bar? Why can I not see my hunger bar? Why can't I see my actual hunger value? Oh, I'm at 5, apparently. Wow.
That would be why you can't see it.
No, there's no meter for it. Or no, I'm just not used to the tininess of the meter. I'm used to the one from Undead Legacy being significantly larger.
Okay.
There was only the cat food. I think I'm apparently
All
more
right.
hungry than you are.
Mm-hmm. It's fine. There's a way down.
I just jumped.
yeah, Mobius, those are two ends of the spectrum that I would not enjoy either of which.
Well, you are very hungry. Starvation will kill you eventually. Your maximum stamina is reduced by 27.7. Okay.
Okay.
Where'd
Where'd you go?
I'm gathering a nest because there's eggs.
Okay.
Okay, this sounds rude. I'm gonna eat an egg.
Go for it.
How bad is fall damage in this game?
Fall damage can kill you.
It can, but it takes a lot.
Yep. That's not going to kill.
So yes,
I don't
I
wanna
just
live in a
ate an
big
egg
city,
raw.
But I also don't want to live like off the grid or anything. I use my phone too much to live off grid.
Yeah.
See, big old door.
Yep.
It's also coming up on nighttime, so we may not have time to do this twice.
That's fine. You can do it again.
Ow. Jerk.
Ooh.
Walkable cities would be nice.
Walkable
You live in an
cities would
apartment
be
near
nice.
public transit or walkable district is more important to me than avoiding crowds. But you don't go out so much where it's kind of pointless for you to worry. You want to be able to pick up. You want me to be able to pick up the folding chair and use it as a weapon? That would be kind of cool.
That would be
That'd
cool.
be fun. I like games with
I think there is a mod that allows you to use many objects as weapons.
In Stardew, one of your rewards for killing a bunch of bugs is that you get a bug head to kill things.
A bug head?
You get a bug head sword.
Oh, good lord.
Honestly, it's not it's not a super good sword.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially for a more experienced player like me. By the time I unlocked the bug sword, I was already higher. I already had higher swords. But the first time I played, I used the insect head sword for a fair bit.
Okay, I remember this the last time I went up here.
Boots. Red boots.
Red.
I'm gonna have a friend come and join me in a second here.
Hold on, I'm coming. I'm coming.
Ready for someone to drop in?
Yep. Yo, Joe.
Chill.
Yo! I think we're both inaccurate. Oh, Biker's back.
Yep.
Hello, Mr. Biker.
Why is he going after me?
He
I don't
doesn't
know.
want to be misogynistic.
Because he's a
Okay.
biker. Because he doesn't like the color green.
He doesn't like the color green. Well, tough.
Hiroshima?
Pardon me while I eat one more egg. Before I starve
Yep.
to death.
I suppose.
Ooh. I got one. Ooh.
Oh. Pipe pistol.
Well, we're clear at least, though, so if I died here, it wouldn't be so big a deal. I'd have to run back, though.
Alright, well, I've got a pipe pistol. And I've got the Magnum Enforcer book. Oh, God.
If that's
yes,
one you've read.
You got a I haven't read it yet.
All right.
I pat Mama's head first.
Yes, I got. I was wondering why my headset was going bonk, bonk, bonk. It's because my head was being petted.
You're welcome, Toast.
Oh. Oh. That's juicy.
Yeah, you should see what the crawlers are like.
So they made them a little. Like, there's another button we could press to start another quest, but I'm keen on just leaving now because I'm starving to death.
Yeah, that's probably good. So we'll just go back to the.
I think
Greater.
there's
I
like
don't know if we're
a
gonna be back
lamb
in time.
ration or something in the box.
Okay.
And I think the trade NPC can offer some stuff, but alternatively, I could just like run back to town and just let myself starve to death because we're early enough in the game where that's not a huge penalty.
Yeah. Because we are in Neva's game, which is in it's in Arizona, I think.
Somewhere in middle of the U.S.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the Corn Belt.
Somewhere in the Corn Belt. I thought it was Arizona.
Let us speak, survivor. Made my day.
Another crafting skill magazine bundle. I think I'm going to grab that.
Ooh, armor pocket mod. That one's a fetch.
Oh,
All right.
thank you very much. I will
Okay, I'm at like 1 hunger value, so I'm just going to exit towards the beds and let myself starve.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Horrible way to go,
I could feed it. I could feed, but like
This is a fun way to spell corn.
Corn Belt, yes. Okay.
No one.
Alright. Alright, so I have
I found some boots that are
Handgun
probably
magazine.
better than your shoes.
salvage tool crafting skill and knife guy improves blade crafting skill.
Blades is agility, so that's similar to yours.
Yeah. I've taken the knife skill, so
Blood for the blood god.
yes, look for the cornflakes. God.
That does give off blood for the blood god vibes, though, right?
Yes.
You can't get mad at me for saying that you're playing a zombie game.
I'm not mad. I'm just
I have taken a perk in shotguns.
milk for the cornflakes. Corn belt, milk for the cornflakes.
Corn for the corn god?
Corn for the corn god. Okay.
Okay, if I get
right,
one more
so-
book of Shotgun Weekly, I can make a pipe shotgun tier 2.
How do you find that again? That's in the
It's in the last tab of your perks. There's a new tab for that.
the crafting skills.
Yeah.
I remember I saw a Tumblr post once that was like, why is it always blood for the blood god? I think the blood god has enough blood. And it's like, one does not become the blood god by saying, I think I have enough blood now.
I don't know. Oh, Mobius got sent turtles and cinnamon toast crunch for Christmas.
Ooh, turtles. I like turtles.
Ooh, I love turtles. Vodio-do-do-do.
Starving?
He does, though.
I might be starving, everybody. What's my actual value at? I am at 0 out of 105 food. I am about to
So-
die.
Can you focus on food?
Food? What is the food? You're doing the food one, which is strength.
Yes.
I'm concentrating on agility and intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Rhino is concentrating on strength and...
Endurance.
Are you doing endurance?
Strength and fortitude. I will eventually start branching into perception just for the loot perks, but strength and endurance first.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain what turtles are?
No, turtles, take a half of a pecan, smother it in caramel, smother that, let it harden, and then smother that in milk chocolate, and robe it in milk chocolate.
And then form it to the shape of a turtle!
It kind of
Actually,
does
it's
that
not-
automatically when you just
it-
kind of
it-
do that.
Yeah, it sort of does that automatically when you do that.
Turtles aren't